Hello, BookTube, and I'm back with another sort of pre-recorded video, which has been absent from my channel for a while. I'm still under the weather in the sense of, well, I'm not sure what is causing it. Well, I know it's COVID related or my long COVID related, but I've been having some breathing difficulties. I've got a bit of a chest thing going on. So I've only been doing some lives and not that successful. I've been really slow in reading and everything. I'm way behind in everything, but I think I'm getting a bit better. But it's taken me like 18 hours a day of rest to get a few hours of being awake enough to do something, especially reading because yeah, it's just my reading has really fallen behind, and it's now going in probably the sixth week. But we'll see how it works. But anyway, enough of that. I am back with the pre-recorded video, and I'm thinking of next year. Yeah, I'm already thinking of 2026, and those that are science fiction fans will know that 1926 is well, it's a centennial year for Hugo Gernsback's publication of Amazing Stories, which sort of kicked off the first, exclusive science fiction magazine. That was in April 1926. So I'm sure there's going to be lots of celebrations, lots of reading events, and I thought I would have my own sort of type of reading event, and I'm sure I'm probably not unique in doing this specific one. There'll be actually two, but I'll get to the second one briefly. But I thought I would do a short story from every year. So yeah, short story from 1926 and so on all the way up. Now, I guess my conundrum has been, and my thought process here is, well, how do I choose these stories? Do I choose stories? Obviously, they have to be published within that year. So they're new stories for that year. They could have been written before, but as long as they were first published in that given year. And a short story, not a novelette, not a novel, because that's a different thing, but a short story. And I'm gonna say short story, from like 30 pages in a book or less, basically. But that's not that difficult to figure out. The difficult part is, yeah, how do I choose these? Do I go for the middle road of popular author that's still sort of recognizable name, and either a very popular story, even if the author's not so recognized, or do I go for the obscure, the author who wrote, Bob 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 Smith? I'm just trying to figure out a name. Bob Smith, who wrote one science fiction story in 1947 and published it in a small little magazine in 1947 that lasted only a couple of years. Do I go for things like that, because I do have some of these magazines that lasted only a couple of years. For instance, here's one here, Space Stories. This is a magazine that lasted from I think five issues, I believe it was, late 1952 into 1953. I think it was bi-monthly. It was one of the later last pulps. Because by early 1950, pulp size magazines were phasing themselves out. But yeah, so this is, but like in this one, it does have a somewhat familiar author's name, Sam Merwin Jr. to some, but the other authors in here are absolutely forgotten. Like, and it's probably a lot of this stuff that I may never have read myself. So is that another one? Do I go for true and try, known authors, known stories, or go for the obscure and specifically ones that probably I haven't read? I guess the other question with that is, how many people would be interested in reading along with me for this? And by choosing, obviously, the more true and tried one, those are going to be easy to find, those short stories. The lesser known, the more obscure, they won't be impossible, but they will be a little difficult to find, possibly. There are a lot of PDFs around of the old magazines, so with the identification that I could give, and people could look up to see if it was anthologized after. Chances are a lot of the stories that I choose will not have been anthologized, so they only appeared in the original magazine. So that is a concern. But there's other ones here where, it's an obscure magazine, but sometimes not obscure writers as well. Here's one, Tops in Science Fiction. It lasted 2 issues. The first issue was this larger pulp size, and then it became a digest. But as you can see here, this has a story, and it's on the cover, by Lee Brackett, Citadel of Lost Ships. So that has, and it's also got stories by Ray Bradbury, Ross Rocklin, and Isaac Asimov, and others. I don't think this was a reprint magazine. I just can't remember off the top of my head. But if it was, I do apologize, and probably we wouldn't use that unless we're picking a story from that was originally published earlier. So when I say anthology, so yeah, sometimes some stories did get republished that weren't top shelf stories, in a sense. But we've got other magazines here. Is just an example I could pull from. Thrilling Wonder, which was a long-lived magazine, or fairly long. It's got a Clifford Simak story in too, but it's got other stuff in here. Ian Doe Binder, Ward Hawkins. So there's a lot to choose from for this. Or we could go for the very recognizable. See, this is 1939, so I can pull a story out of here from 1939 that a lot of people may not know, and maybe I have not read either. And then we can go to the popular. That's 1939 as well. So, The Black Destroyer by A. Van Vogt. This is been accused, if you want to call it that, as starting the golden age of science fiction, and this is July 1939, astounding issue with this sort of iconic and just fabulous cover art. So yes, we've got that kind of stuff, and then we could go back to earlier astounding story magazines. This is many years before John W. Campbell. This is February 1934. But yeah, so we can pull from well-known magazines, and then we've got a magazine that went through sort of different names, and it had a bit of a rocky history to it, in the sense of publication names and so forth. But this is future science fiction, or future combined with science fiction, where they combined another previous magazine to it if it wasn't selling well from the publisher. But you've got things here like you got the Ross Rocklin again. We've got a novelette by Paul Anderson, short story by the looks of it, by Alfred Capel, Lester Del Rey, and J. Harvey Haggard. So we've got like I say, a lot to choose from. Or another magazine that's kind of it's not forgotten, but it's I did write down, because this one was kind of neat, because of it lasted actually quite is it no, it's the Fantastic it was another one here I had that lasted quite a long time. But this one, Fantastic Universe, it didn't last that long. It lasted a couple of years, and this one is December 1959. So I could pull something from that, and then we go to other magazines here. You got Super Science Fiction. This again didn't last that long. A couple of years possibly. I'm just going off the top of my head. So don't quote me on exact times for these. Um, but yeah, it just, pulling from that, and then, well, this is the one that lasted from I think early 50s to 1980. It was sort of a sister magazine to Amazing Stories. Seeley Goldsmith sort of took it up again, or took over the helm of it, and it sort of, it blazed for a little while. That was pretty good, and this is just a fabulous cover that's been reused on other books, for most notably is Mike Ashley's History of Science Fiction magazine. That's the cover of one of his volumes. So, and then we've got, the anthologies. I've got, dozens of anthologies to go through, and I can, for the years that I don't have anything, I could pull something from these. And again, even though it has been anthologized, doesn't mean that they're super popular. We've got Will F. Jenkins in here, Cleve Carrymill, Malcolm Jameson, William B. Shiras. We've got C.L. Moore, Murray Leinster, Lewis Pageant, Anthony Boucher, Theodore Sturgis. So there are, obviously popular authors or still remembered authors in these. But yeah, so the question really is, do I pull from obscure? And I think for a large chunk in the sort of 70s or in the 80s to 90s into the 2000s, a large chunk is going to come from Gardner Dozois's Year's Best SF. And I'll just, again, randomly choosing something out of there that is a lot of that will be obscure to me, but maybe not, again, popular authors if I go that route. So, yeah, the question is, do let me know. Should I go for the tried and true method of popular authors, popular stories, or the obscure? And will this be something that you'd be interested in reading along with? Is the other question. Because would you mind? I can give you the original publication date, and then you'd have to try to track down the location of where you could find a copy to read, either in PDF or in book form, if you wanted to go that route. So yeah, so that's the question that I have out there for the 100th anniversary of science fiction for next year. And the other one, I said there'll be two projects that I'll be going with, the short stories, and another one is I'm going to go through and try to pick a science fiction film for every year. Have sort of toyed with this idea in the past. And I know there's a few years that are going to be a bit blanks, so I'll have to sort of, shift things a little bit. But for the most part, I think I could get 100 years of science fiction movies in there. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're all going to be great, that's for sure. The same with the short stories. So yeah, so are any or both of these of interest to you? But definitely do let me know whether it should be the tried and true method or obscure authors, and if you'd be interested in following along. Thank you, BookTube, and I hope to be back more often. Thank you.